Hey loved ones, I'm Keyosha. It's pronounced Keyosha, meaning key of the ocean. I'm a life coach and a motivational speaker, known for my company, Key Coaching, which focuses on self-betterment. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you what I've learned from being a coach. I'll provide you the keys not just to survive, but to thrive. Percent certain that a lot of us aren't fully aware of what our human rights are or how many there are. I'll give you a second to take a wild guess about how many human rights you have. Yeah, we have 30. So just the number itself can be daunting and prevent you from even attempting to memorize them. But I think that it's beneficial for us to know what they are because it's something that is upheld by the UN, which is just United Nations. That means the globe. And these are our rights no matter which country we go to or who we are. So let's dig into it. Our first human right is all humans are free and equal. So I'm going to just right out of the gate say that it can differ from country to country what government enforces what law. Think you buy a house, it's your property, and what you do inside of your property is kind of like your law. And so if you want to have a lock on your bathroom door, you can or you don't need to. But like I said, these are supported by the United Nations and these are global human rights. That's why they're called the human rights. It's for every human being. And so, yes, number one is all humans are free and equal. Number two is no discrimination. And so that means not changing someone's life in a negative or positive way, dependent on things that are out of their control, like their race, gender, age, anything like that. We all have the right to life. That's kind of a no-brainer. The fourth human right is no slavery. The fifth human right is no torture. And the sixth human right is the human right to use law. So I know that that sounds like it's not actually fair across the board. The reason why is because law sometimes is subject to defending the person who has the best lawyer. And obviously, there's something called legal aid, but legal aid has its own reputation. So when your back is against the wall and you need a legal defense, and for example, you're in family court or you've been criminally charged and you're innocent and you don't want to be convicted of a crime, this is where the same right to use law for everyone is supposed to exist for everyone. But the difference is, as we can see or we have seen, is how financially you are equipped to have access to the right of using law. The seventh human right is you are equal before the law. So, say for example, you know, two people get into a car accident and both parties end up injured. The person who's trying to decide who is at fault would have to decide who is at fault based on the accident itself and not the individuals. And human right number 8 is that we are to be treated fairly by court. I feel bad because I'm literally laughing at this only as a result of the mess that we see in the United States. A lot of times there's people who are tried for a crime that they didn't commit, and then they aren't financially equipped to uphold their human right, number 6, the right to use law. And as a result, they're maybe not even given the option of bail, um, or they're given the option of bail and they don't have the finances to be able to bail themselves out. And so they have to stay in prison or in a position where they lack freedom until the court case is resolved. But the reason why I laugh at this is because myself and other friends of color have joked about the fact that it's almost like a guilty until proven innocent concept, which is an issue within itself. But it has a lot to do with whether or not we're legally equipped to defend ourselves in the court system or the judicial system. The ninth human right is no unfair detainment. So when if or when someone is detained, they've committed some kind of a crime, they stole or something. The moment that you're like, read your rights, put in handcuffs, taken um, to a holding cell or whatever, that is detainment. Um, and so we have the right to no unfair detainment, not being held in that holding cell or put into handcuffs without any real reasoning. No one can just walk up to you and put you into handcuffs. That should be the concept. And the 10th human right is a right to a trial. So instead of being put in those handcuffs and then detained and then just thrown in prison for the rest of your life, you should have a right to a trial, which means that they should actually weigh the evidence and figure out whether or not you are innocent until you are tried or treated as if you are guilty. And then human right number 11 is innocent until proven guilty. So, that's the reason why I laughed about the treated fairly by the court is because obviously we've seen that in different countries, in different scenarios, and in different demographics, it's not always upheld to the highest extent. The human right number 12, and people don't go out of control with this. I feel like I could see people like hiding their phones from their partners or whatever after hearing that the 12th human right is the right to privacy. Because everybody has a different idea of privacy. So, um, yeah, but it is our human right number 12. And then our human right number 13 is the freedom to move and a freedom of residence. So basically being able to live somewhere or move if you need to. The 14th human right is the right to asylum. So pretty much if you are in danger, you can seek asylum. You can do so in a church or wherever, where you can reside for whatever period of time until you are safe. And our 15th human right is a right to a nationality. Um, this is where our passports come into play, and that's kind of why they ask your nationality on a lot of documents. Your right to nationality means, claiming where you feel you are from or where your homeland is. And the United Nations is supposed to uphold your right to a nationality. And then your 16th human right is a right to marriage and family. So I've mentioned in previous episodes that your family can be blood related to you. It could be a chosen family instead. Um, but it's your human right, number 16. So, yeah. Your 17th human right is the right to own things: house, car, water cup. And then your 18th human right is your freedom of thought and religion. I'm going to give you a spoiler of an upcoming episode where I dissect the difference between religion and spirituality. But yes, your 18th human right is the right to freedom of thought and religion. And then your 19th human right is your freedom of opinion and expression. Another one that people shouldn't take and abuse, but ultimately, your human right of opinion and expression is something that attaches onto your authenticity. So, in every scenario, there's your side, the other person's side, and the truth. Or, for example, if there's a bunch of people who are watching even a hockey game and a fight breaks out, there's going to be a bunch of different expressions, obviously, because the bystander syndrome, there's something happening that's violent and they can't do anything about it, but also their freedom of their opinion. And their opinion is going to be independent from person to person of what specifically took place, how many, shots landed, or how many times that the person tried to throw a punch and how many punches landed, and what transpired in the actual fight. Your 20th human right is actually your right to assembly. Something that I'm sure we've all noticed takes place significantly more frequently now than ever before is assembly. Initially, starting with 2019's assembly for the Black Lives Matter movement and other protests that have happened. So, something that rattled a lot of us was the convoy, especially in the Western world, because it was a very organized assembly, like the GoFundMe, for example, and how planned in advance it was. Technology is rapidly advancing, but it plays a huge part in how we human right now. Um, and I just can't forget to say how astonished I was by just the way that it played out. It was very interesting and captivating. So most recently, the protests that are happening right now regarding the war in Ukraine. I just want to take a moment to hold space for everyone that is affected by that war right now. I know it's just going to be a white noise, but um, if we can, sit silently and send positive energy and healing. Thank you. And so, yes, it is our right to assemble. It is our right to protest what we feel is wrong with the world right now. And it's pretty much one of the only ways that things have been feeling like they can be made right nowadays. Our 21st human right is the right to a democracy. So being able to vote and decide who is in a position of power, like a prime minister or president. And our 22nd human right is the right to social security. Um, I feel like the best way to define that is like our idea of still being secure despite what happens in our lives. Our 23rd human right is our right to work. So that's there. It's never been forgotten. We're pretty much conditioned to know that we'll be working from like the age of 4. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up kind of deal. The right to work is our 23rd right. And I feel like it's a thing. I don't know how to talk about it without being brutally honest, but being able to work from the age of 14 until you're 65, like 50 years of work is a long time. Um, or even being expected to work for that long. Um, Especially because our life expectancy is like, I don't know, only in our 80s, and that's in like Western worlds. So you wouldn't want to imagine that 2/3 of your life would be accredited to working, but it's the setup of the system. So it's our 23rd human right. And our 24th human right is our right to rest and holiday. I feel like I like that there was more holidays now coming out of nowhere. um, like International Hug Day and International SpongeBob Day. It's not an obsession, it's a hobby. So, yeah, our 24th right is really important. Hustle culture is very unhealthy, but it's ingrained in all of us. We never talk about the right to rest and to holiday. People are more likely to work on holidays because the idea of being paid more is dangled in front of them. Time and a half or double time. Most people are familiar with these terms and they'd rather be paid double time or time and a half than share the holidays that they have the 24th right to do so with other humans that they love, because we're under the impression that financial freedom is what gives us freedom. More money is what gives us that ability to spend more time with the humans we love. But I've never heard of anyone on their deathbed being like, I wish I worked more. Usually they want to be taking back time that they spent missing out on their loved ones' lives. So I really want to urge that everyone remember their 24th right to rest and to holiday. When you're pushing yourself past a breaking point, pretty much depriving yourself of one of the necessities that creates nourishment in your life, you're almost like, I just want to give like a example before I say what you're pretty much doing when you don't rest and then, you know, barely spend time with the people that you love. But pretty much imagine like a mom making a lunch for a kid. The child might be young and they might not be able to choose certain things, but maybe they have preferences as well. So there's a sandwich and they don't like the crust. So the mom cuts off the crust. And then there's an apple, but they don't like the peel. So the mom peels the apple. And there's tomato slices, but they don't like the tops or the bottoms of the tomato. So the mom cuts off the tops and the bottoms and gives them every other part. And usually, like, the parent is like eating the crust of the bread and the peel of the apple because there's still nutrients in it. But it's just kind of like maybe they're just rushing and they're feeding themselves that. And then the child gets this like lovely lunch. But they're pretty much leaving the scraps for themselves and they're not giving themselves that lovely lunch or ultimately that love. When you do not honor your 24th human right to rest and holiday, you're overworking yourself, and then there's a little bit of yourself left, which you give a portion to self care and then the people that you love. But unfortunately, by doing that, you're giving yourself and the people that you love, which should matter the most, the leftovers, the scraps. And so you're sleep deprived, you're not cognitively as sharp, and you may not even have an interest in spending that time with them. So their impression of you is going to be that. This is exactly why I really encourage considering your right to rest royalty. Like it's like what should be honored. Hold it highly. Moving on. Human right number 25 is your right to social service. So I kind of think of social service as like your social services. If, for example, you lose your job or there's a portion of time that you can't work, it could be as a result of injury, which would be like workers' compensation, or if you're born with a disability or you have a disability, you'd be on disability, which is a form of social service. And if you are completely unemployed and maybe you haven't been unemployed for a portion of time, um, you would be put on like welfare. Or if you need to leave work because you just gave birth, you'd be put on maternity leave or maternity EI, employment insurance. And these are social services that exist to uphold some sort of normalcy while life has its ups and downs. Another form of social service is ministry and family workers or like healthcare workers. These are services that are offered to us when we need them. And it's a social norm that we have access to them, at least in the Western world. Your 26th human right is your right to education. So, this is really important to be upheld, especially now with a lot of things being accessible online. I think that more of us should take advantage of our right to education. It's said that we only use 10% of our brains, but I think that we need to be aware of the fact that we only absorb like 100 words per minute if we're in a conscious state, but our subconscious can absorb like 500 million. So that's a huge contrast. And so another thing to be aware of is when we meditate, our whole brain lights up and there's brain activity in more than 10%. So also recommending that we take advantage of our right to education, especially because it's more accessible and it allows us to have freedom of discretion of what we feel is useful knowledge and what should be discarded. Just like textbooks, they don't always use volume number one. Like our great great grandparents used to read, volumes get higher and higher, volume 2 and 3 and 4, the further that we get down the road of knowledge. Our 27th human right is our right to culture, and that differentiates from nationality because it doesn't matter if I was born in Canada. The things that I would practice in my culture would be from what my cultural beliefs are and what I was raised in. I may or may not have been raised with Catholicism or Christian religion, Islam, lots of different things, foods, clothing, even the body language of not looking people in the eye in Oriental culture. But ultimately, it's your 27th human right to it. So if your culture really loves and empowers you for wearing your hair in an afro, then it's actually your human right to be able to wear your hair the way that you want to wear your hair in any kind of style that exists in your culture, whether or not it's a hijab or shaving your head bald in Punjabi culture, which they do with babies. So, yeah. And then your 28th human right is worldwide freedom. Don't forget that. It's literally the freedom of all the human rights that we've talked about. And your 29th human right is that you are subject to law. So that means that if I go to Canada and I originally lived in the States and I can drive 140 kilometers on an American highway, when I go to Canada and the speed limit is 90 kilometers, I have to be subject to that law. If I don't follow that law, I'm basically subject to being penalized by that law. Pretty self-explanatory. The most important human right, I would say, is this last one. And if you haven't started writing already, I would recommend rewinding and writing. Our 30th human right is that our human rights cannot be taken away. So everything that was mentioned is not something that anyone has the right to take away. If that doesn't give you the power to go forth with confidence, I don't know what will. So yeah, this is just one of the most important topics. It's crazy that it's not taught in curriculum. It needs to be taught everywhere to everyone. And something that we should make sure that we remember. Because there are a lot of times that many of us don't even realize that we're not honoring our basic human rights. So, yeah, those are our 30 basic human rights. If you found this information useful, click the links below. And yeah, if you want to follow me anywhere on any platform, you can follow me at Keyosha333. Oh, song suggestion of the week is Get Up, Stand Up by Bob Marley. You saw it coming. All right, loved ones. See you next week. Bye.